make a choice the way you have your meal. So not only think about the quality, but also think about the quantity, and also think about your attentiveness. Think about your intention. Think about many things, and then only you make your choices when you are going to have your meal. But it seems like important than the quality and the quantity and all those things is our ability to digest the food. Digestion. So we went on discussing digestion last time as two things. Peristalsis as the rhythmic contraction of digestive tube, which is required for us to move food, plus the secretion of digestive enzymes. So these were the two things we went on discussing. Imbalance in these two leads to indigestion. So there is a possibility that the movement, it's too much, but the secretion is not there, or vice versa. Sometimes there is too much secretion, but movement is not there. So we require the balance of these two. So not only the food moves properly, but at the same time we add the right amount of secretion or enzymes so we can break it down properly. As I've said, that these two things, we need not to think about them. They happen on their own under autonomic nervous system, and specifically under one of the division of autonomic nervous system, which is parasympathetic. We went on talking about how do I recognize that is there parasympathetic or sympathetic activation of our autonomic nervous system, and we said with breath observation. So our breath supposed to be slow, rhythmic, and diaphragmatic. So these are the three things as the characteristic of breath I need to check to have parasympathetic tone. Now, how to have it? The very first step is posture and postural alignment. Posture and postural alignment. So, there are people, they say that I'm practicing yoga for that many years, but even then it looks like my digestion is not improved. And every asana you go and read the benefits, like this is the book. This is one of the major book to study asanas with their benefits and contraindications and all those things. So you go and read any asana, and one of the benefit is common, and that is it improves your digestion. One of the thing is common, that it improves your digestion. And it seems like people I've seen that they say I'm practicing all these things for that many years, but it seems like my digestion is still the same. So again, asana is not just morning and evening. Asana is supposed to be throughout the day, because as long as I have the body, my body has only one dharma, my body has only one duty to perform, and that is posture. That is posture. So I need to discern my postural alignment all the time, moment by moment, because there are certain postures that are psychophysiologically beneficial, and then there are some they are not. There are certain postures, they are psychophysiologically beneficial. If you sit upright, it improves not only your physiological condition, but at the same time the clarity of mind. So psychophysiologically they are beneficial. But then there are some postures, they are psychophysiologically not good. Maybe you have seen the matches, especially like soccer and all those things. So sometimes when like one team leads the match 4-0, so maybe we have heard that commentator says it looks like this particular team has already lost the game. Why? Because the chin is down, head down, shoulders down. So posture not just affects the physiology, but at the same time psychology. Once we had the digestion, now it's the job of circulation. That means after digestion, we're going to have the nutrients, and now it's time for our circulatory system to take over and take these nutrients to each and every corner of our body. So circulation, again, I would say two things. This is our transportation. It takes the nutrients from digestive system to all over the body, and at the same time brings the metabolic waste from the cell back to those places from where we can excrete those things out. So circulation, as I've said, two things. First, I would say nourishment. So it leads to the cellular nourishment because it brings the nutrients all over the body, and at the same time it helps excretion. So excretion of metabolic waste. So there are two things under circulation. One, it takes the nutrients from digestive process all the way to each and every corner of the body, and at the same time takes the metabolic waste from that place to the excretory mechanism so we can release it outside. Again, I would say the same thing. I would ask the same thing. This transportation of nutrient towards the cell and removal of metabolic waste from the cell, is it voluntary or involuntary? Involuntary. Do we need to think about it? Do we need to instruct our circulatory system? No. That means again, it goes straight away under the control of autonomic nervous system. Now to have proper circulation, do we need sympathetic activation or parasympathetic activation? Parasympathetic activation. Why? Because anytime I activate the sympathetic side of my autonomic nervous system, something happens. Something happens. Here comes a hormone. We went on discussing about it. With any time I have sympathetic activation, one thing is common, and that is, so anytime I go for the sympathetic activation, they say this is a HPA axis. So anytime we talk about sympathetic activation, that means HPA axis, in which H stands for hypothalamus, P stands for pituitary gland, and A stands for adrenal gland. So HPA axis means, here comes an axis which becomes active with sympathetic activation, that hypothalamus gets agitated. Now what is the role of hypothalamus in our physiology? Have you heard about hypothalamus? Hypothalamus is the part of limbic system. I think in the first week we went on discussing the three major levels of brain. So the first one was brainstem, the lower one, and then the second one was limbic system, and then on top there was cortex. So limbic system, this is the part of our limbic system. We said that time limbic system is all about emotions and memories. But there is one more thing we can add to the characteristic of limbic system, and hypothalamus is all about homeostasis. So that means all the physiological conditions required for me to be healthy and alive, they are under the regulation of hypothalamus. So what happens anytime I have sympathetic activation? That means my homeostasis is challenged, isn't it? Anytime I have sympathetic activation, that means my homeostasis is challenged. So hypothalamus is agitated. As soon as the hypothalamus is agitated, it sends the signal to pituitary gland, and then pituitary sends the signals to adrenal gland, and then adrenal starts producing certain hormones, and this is one of them. Now what happens with this? That this leads to improper distribution of nutrients or energy resource. So cortisol creates imbalance in circulation. In which way? It acts like a policeman. It acts like a policeman. It says, hey, you can't go in this direction, just go in that direction. So it blocks certain pathways and it sends the energy resource towards some other direction. That means what? Certain systems of the body, they are deprived of energy resource. For instance, we went on discussing it, that cortisol suppresses digestion. So that means, like, the thing is, for sure we get nutrients out of digestion, but to have digestion we require energy, isn't it? To have digestion we require energy, otherwise we can't have it. So what happens? Cortisol says, hey, this is an emergency situation, I will take care of digestion later on. This is an emergency situation, I don't need to digest the food right now, I can send all my energy towards musculoskeletal system and be ready for fight or flight. So that means more energy rushes towards my muscles. More energy rushes towards my respiratory system, circulatory system, but digestion is suppressed. Reproduction, suppressed. Immunity, which takes a lot of energy resource, is suppressed. Improper distribution of energy resource happens with sympathetic activation. That means what I'm trying to establish here, that to have proper circulation we require parasympathetic tone of autonomic nervous system. Once in a while, for real emergencies, it's magical. I'm not against sympathetic activation completely. When it's needed, it's needed. Because parasympathetic is not going to work, because think of that a monkey is about to chase you down in the roads of Rishikesh. You require a lot of sympathetic activation as to run away or fight the monkey. But please do not ever try to do so, huh?